The dust had a name. It was called One Man Dying. It blew down the street of Pitchfork, Texas. Wagon ruts and the rare raindrop not enough to keep it down. Leaping from its rest into the smoking hot wind off the West Texas prairie, it swirled and cut and piled against rocks and fence posts, then unpiled to move its gray river somewhere else. It pasted the walls of saloons and houses with speckles of gray, and drifted into the eyes of preachers and gunfighters alike, making no distinction based upon virtue. A weathered boot hit the dusty street, then another. Then there were 3 pairs of boots, 2 facing one, and a space in between called death. On the hill, a windmill creaked. A horse in the stable shuffled. Otherwise, no sound rose to the clotted air. Just the whispered dust makes sifting itself about, covering what remains too long in one place. 3 men stood, waiting. The dust drifted off the brims of their hats as they turned slightly side to side, checking for danger. The hats shifted and fixed, shifted and fixed, facing each other as the eyes returned to the graying image of the enemy. Murdoch was the enemy this time around. And Murdoch's enemy was Luke, the bounty hunter hired to track him down. And nobody stood next to Murdoch, and the nobody amounted to nothing. Luke chewed his cheroot. The muscles on the side of his face motored and rippled. His black, wide-brimmed hat with the chain of silver hatband tilted ever so slightly, as if nodding imperceptibly in disagreement. He swept the tail of his long coat to the side, revealing his peacemaker resting loosely in the black holster, with the ice-white ace of spades emblazoned on its side. The wind swirled and spun. A piece of gunny sack rolled across the space between the men and died against the swinging doors of the old Misery Saloon. No one blinked. "Ready to see God?" Murdoch called out. Luke switched his cheroot to the other side of his grimace with the tip of his tongue, but the tongue said nothing. "No one outdraws me," Murdoch said. "A lot of people have tried and died." Luke's eyes narrowed. The pupils burned. "Tried and died," Murdoch repeated, softly, rolling his fingers. Luke chewed harder. The cheroot split. He spit a wad to one side. "So I rob banks," Murdoch said. "So they send some goddamned hired gun to do their dirty work for them. Is that you? Are you the latest to get killed, just trying to score a pouch of gold?" Luke said nothing. The wind picked up. The dust rose in snowflakes as if a dark blizzard just hit town. To those watching, images of 3 men standing in a face-off faded and returned, faded and returned. And in the interim, no one moved. The dust stuck to the stubble on Luke's face. Particles of it dropped away in small clouds as he chewed. Seconds passed like the hours that wait for the sound of wagons not arriving. Murdoch spread his arms to his side. The nobody did the same. Luke made one small gesture. He unhooked his thumb from his belt. Many people could have been born. Many died in the large space of that small moment. The sound of a music box played in Luke's head. The high, tinkling notes had the lonesome quality of an echo off canyon walls, riding in on a distant wind. A vision of a small farm flashed across his mind. A house, a barn, and a water well in the front yard. There was a boy in the yard. The wind came down the canyon. With his index finger, he curled a watch chain from his pocket and let the fob dangle against his chest. Some folk might be hypnotized by the nothing that was happening, might lose their edge. Will someone lose his edge? A flash like a falcon landing its prey was the motion of Murdoch's hand to his gun. It might have been the slam of a door, a bolt of lightning, the strike of a viper. Things that quick even the most attentive eye can miss. But Murdoch's gun never left its holster. He crumpled to the ground, and the nobody stood paralyzed before the muzzle of the long-barreled peacemaker, pointed at the nose on his face. Luke walked toward the dying man, trembling on the ground. He eyed the nobody. He turned his peacemaker to point at Murdoch. Then, still watching the nobody, pulled the trigger twice. The nobody flinched twice. Luke holstered his peacemaker. He reached out his bowie knife and cut an ear off the dead man. He stuffed it in a pocket of his black vest as casually as one might return a snuff box to its tuck. He stared at the nobody. He chewed his cheroot. The nobody trembled. "You love killing that much?" the nobody said. Luke removed the cheroot from his mouth and flipped it away. It sparked as it hit the dust and went out. "That's what they pay me for," he said.